Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of That's Okay. Now, we recently had a guest, and we were actually discussing about social media, right? The dangers on social media. So, just to summarize a little bit, um, what are these dangers, right? We're talking about videos on wars, violence, gore, sexual content, lifestyles, right? I think as parents, what can we do to ensure that our kids avoid such things? Now, here's the thing. Can it be avoided, right? I think it's not. I don't think it's possible for you to avoid such things. Um, Minimize exposure to such videos. Or what else can we do? Talk to our kids about it. Just preemptive measure, talk to them like, hey, if you come across such things, you got to be really delicate. You're not going to be so direct, right? Just bring things up a bit. Means you got to talk to your kids about it. Hey, if you come across such videos on, blah, 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 maybe you might want to, maybe you can bring it up. But I think maybe we can talk about it. Like, I'm sure, right, kids nowadays with YouTube, TikTok, I'm sure they will have seen different kinds of videos, different kinds of content. So what can we do? Talk about it. Be honest, right? Have a conversation, right? Maybe we can talk to them about why, at least your opinion on why this may not be a positive thing. It's not so good. Again, being, you don't want to be forceful like, hey, you shouldn't be watching this, stop watching, I don't think you can do that because the more you do that, you know what kids will do, right? They will do it even more. You know what I mean, right? So you force them to not do it, they will do it. So maybe that's not the way to go. So I guess have an honest conversation. Sit down and, hey, you guys saw this video on, I'm sure, they would have come across certain kinds of videos, right? So talk about it. It could work out. So at least they understand, right? They understand like, oh, okay. Right. So they listen to your opinion. So they have a different perspective. Because, when they watch something, right? When these kids, when they see something, they have their own perspective. So when you come in with another perspective, so at least there's something for them to weigh a bit. You know what I mean? So, yeah, maybe not so good, right? So I guess one of the things that we could do is to have an honest conversation with the kids, right? And for me, right, I'll share with you something now. There's this app, right, which is called the Kids Lock. So this Kids Lock app allows you to control the timing your child have on their phones, on their device, right? So that's what I use, Kids Locks. You can minimize the time they have. You can actually control the certain apps that they can use, right? So this is what I'm using. I'm not sure whether there are other ways. If I'm sure there are, there has to be. So parents, if there's other things that certain methods that you're using, why not leave us some comments, or you can email us, right? I would love to hear what you guys have. Again, I'm not the expert here, but this is what I try to do, at least, right? So, yeah, I would love to hear what you guys have as well. So, we also have the opportunity to speak to our previous guest about the fact that he went through a divorce before, and now he's in his second marriage. He shared with us certain terms. Let me share with you some of these terms. Co-parenting, parallel parenting. Now, co-parenting is something that I think most of us are quite familiar with, right? For divorced parents. The term that I was curious is parallel parenting. So that really piqued my interest, the word parallel parenting. I don't think I've heard of that before. And of course, we have parental alienation, right? So let's understand what these terms mean. Okay, co-parenting, from my understanding, is you have the mom and dad working together, right? Of course, they are divorced, but they are working together for the children, right? So they have one like one mindset lah in that sense, like one plan for the children. Now, parallel parenting is slightly different. Where, for example, if the children go to the mom side, the mom will handle it her way, and then when the children go to the dad side, the dad will handle it his way. So, I guess in a way, the children learns two different things, right? So they're exposed to two different ways, right? I'm sure there's pros and cons, lah. I'm sure there's pros and cons, but I thought that was interesting because I've never heard of it. So this was new. And of course, we have parental alienation, which is in a situation where it can be a little bit one-sided. Example, one parent has the child and the other parent not able to see the child. Whether it's the mom or dad, lah, it doesn't matter. But so there's a bit of a imbalance there. So that my idea of parental alienation, right? Now maybe I can share with you a bit of a personal experience. There was a time where my wife and I, right, we were not separated, like we were living separately for about a year. So it was quite close we were quite close to getting a divorce, but it never came down to that lah. So we went for, I think there was this counselling that we had to go to, and eventually we came to a compromise, and thankfully, we're still together, right? And it's already been, about 17 years, 16, 17 years, yeah, around there. So I'm happy that things worked out. But of course, it may not have worked out, right? Because we were separated, and that was, now when I think about it, when I reflected back on that, it was quite, it was quite sad lah, because I thought things could have been better managed, right? So if I were to let my younger self know about this, I would probably have a lot of things to say, right? So yeah, there are certain things, maybe certain decisions that could have been made better. Yeah, but I've never had the experience of going through the divorce. So for those of you who may not be so lucky, I guess this is something that you can resonate with, co-parenting, parallel parenting, right? But again, ultimately, what is the objective here, right? What is the objective? You have separate parents. Ultimately, what is the objective? Possibly, it has to be the kids' welfare and upbringing. And even though mom and dad are separated, can they still work together to ensure that the children can be brought up well? And we have a living proof, like my previous guest, we talked about it, and, he was able to share some things with us. And so far, it's good, it worked. Everything is great. Parallel parenting seems to be the way to go. But like I said, this is not something that I have experience with. And I'm curious. I'm curious to know, those of you who have any experience with this co-parenting or parallel parenting, or perhaps parental alienation, we would like to know more. So do let us know, if you have anything to share, because we would like to hear what you have, whether it's positive, negative, but it's your experience, right? The insights of being single mom, single dad, right? Doesn't matter. But if you'd like to share, do let us know, leave information in the comments, or you can email us as well. So another thing I want to talk about, education stress. Oh, education stress. Now, is this something that all parents are going through? Or are your children, is it you or your children going through this education stress, right? So I'm just curious, are we putting too much pressure on our kids? Now, of course, at the end of the day, we want what's best for our children. Correct or not? Like, we want them to succeed. We want them to be successful in their education, academics, But at the end of the day, when we set a certain expectation for our children, is that increasing the stress on them or not? And then at the end of the day, you feel stressed about it. So how do we overcome that, right? Now, as it is, the education system can be quite stressful. As it is, right? We don't talk about our expectation of our children, but the education system itself can be quite stressful to a certain extent, right? So how do we approach this, right? How do we, as parents, approach this, right? So I'm sure, moms have their approach, dads have their approach. So I would think generally, right? Generally, moms would be the one in control of the situation, right? The logistics, the planning, the scheduling, and of course, a little bit more. There's a bit more, how to say, more in touch with the children's work as compared to dads. Now, again, hold on. I'm not saying all dads are like that, but again, just general idea is we come in, right? Dads come in from a different angle. What do we do? When the moms have that approach, do we double down on that approach, or do we go through another way, just to make sure that it's more like a balanced situation here? Not good cop, bad cop situation. I don't know. Could it be a good cop, bad cop situation? Depends, right? Because, when we tend to teach our own kids, we tend to get a little bit more emotional. Oh, no, I think some parents know what I'm talking about, right? When you get emotional, you start scolding, your voice starts to raise, then, and then if one parent does that, the other parent has to come in as a good cop lah. So there is a bit of a bad cop, good cop situation here. Well, again, generally, I'll share with you my personal experience lah. Okay, so my wife will be the one that is a bit more hardcore, a bit more like, she'll be the one on top of things, making sure that both my kids are on top of their work, doing their work, right? So I will come in, I stand by. If let's say she remind me, okay, Feroz, my son, has to do this, Shireen has to do this, okay, then I stand by. If she's not around, then I have to stand by lah. So that's my approach. And at the same time, if she can get a little bit more emotional, then I will come in the other angle, a bit more assuring. I calm down the situation a bit. But that's for me lah. Me and my wife. So we have a different approach, but we try to be involved as much as we can. No, I understand it's not easy. Right? It's not easy. I understand parents. Again, I'm as an educator and a parent myself, right? I understand the situation here. It's not easy. But there is a way to be involved. And in fact, right, I know some dads who are involved. They are really involved with the children's work, and I think that's very nice of them, right? Interesting, right? For them to really get involved and, finding stuff out, especially with science. Yeah, science. So now, talking about science, I want to talk about tuition. Not tuition, tuition. Yeah. Is it a need or a luxury? But I think in today's context, right, for some of us, I think it could be seen as a necessity. Now, again, I'm not saying it's a must. Again, there are some students of mine who wants tuition. Like, they ask their parents, I think I need to go for tuition. Okay. Right? So there's some kind of intrinsic motivation to want to do well. Right? Of course, I think even for myself, right? I even as an educator, you would think I teach my children all the subjects. No, maybe only science lah. But all the other subjects, I send for tuition. So I'll be honest with you, I send them for tuition. But I did tell them, you think you need or don't need? If you think there's no need, then you let me know. No problem. We don't go. But if you think there is a need for you to have that additional help, right? Additional, So because maybe in school not doing enough, not getting enough, so you need the additional help. So I send you, right? So again, something for us to think about here about tuition is not a must, but is it something that is needed? Depends, right? So there we go. I think education stress is something that can be control or minimize? Again, as parents, not just dads, moms and dads together, how do we approach this for the betterment of our children? Right? Because at the end of the day, for me, and I always emphasize this to my students also, and my kids, it's not just learning, but you have to enjoy the learning process. You get what I mean? Yes, yeah, you want to achieve success, yes. But at the end of the day, then it must be something that you want and you can enjoy at the same time. Wouldn't that be nice? You enjoy the learning process. I always that is my modus operandi. Even when I teach, I want to make sure that my students come to class because they want to come to class because they enjoy learning. And at the end of the day, they learn something. Enjoy and learn something, right? So, what do you parents think? What do you guys think about the education stress in Singapore, right? Do let us know, if you have any interesting stories, you can share with us, right? Or you can send us an email or leave some comments as well. Right, so just to summarize what we had, the discussion we have with our previous guests, right? So do let us know if any of you out there or you know anyone who would like to share or you yourself would like to share, just drop us a DM, email us, share with us. We look forward to your presence here. Take care, guys. And don't forget, if there's anything you're not sure about, that's okay. I'll see you soon.